Hear now the words of John chapter 21, verses 1 through 9. This is Peter's soul reset story. Later, Jesus himself appeared again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. This is how that happened. Simon Peter, Thomas, the one called Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, Zebedee's sons, and two other disciples were together. Simon Peter told them, "I'm going fishing." They said, "We'll go with you." They set out in a boat, but throughout the night they caught nothing. Then early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize it was Jesus. Jesus called to them, "Children, have you caught anything to eat?" They answered, "No." He said, "Cast your net on the right side of the boat, and you'll find some." So they did, and there were so many fish that they couldn't haul in the net. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord!" When Simon Peter heard it was the Lord, he wrapped his coat around himself, for he was naked, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they weren't far from shore, only about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire there with fish on it and some bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish you have just caught." Simon Peter got up and pulled the net to shore. It was full of large fish, 153 of them. Yet the net hadn't torn, even with so many fish. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples could bring themselves to ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread, and gave it to them. He did the same with the fish. This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they finished eating, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Simon replied, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." Jesus asked a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Simon replied, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus said to him, "Take care of my sheep." He asked the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was sad that Jesus asked him a third time, "Do you love me?" He replied, "Lord, you know everything. You know I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. I assure you that when you were younger, you tied your own belt and walked around wherever you wanted. When you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will tie your belt and lead you where you don't want to go." He said this to show the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. After saying this, Jesus said to Peter, "Follow me." So here's the tale of the two disciples I want to tell you. I want to tell you about Judas, and then I want to tell you about Peter. I want to tell you about the worst night of their lives. I want to tell you about the time that they were willing to throw away a relationship that was more important than anything, simply because they were having the worst night of their life. Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus, sells Jesus out to the authorities. Judas goes away from that a broken man. His actions lead him to feeling shame, and his shame leads him into isolation, and his isolation ultimately leads him to taking his own life. On the other hand, you have Peter. Peter is the disciple that Jesus has at one time claimed will be the rock, the foundation of the church. And at another time, Jesus has predicted that Peter will deny even knowing Jesus. And on the worst night of Peter's life, he denies Jesus. That action leads him to feel shame, to be afraid, to go to his fellow disciples, to spend a long night fishing, to sharing breakfast on a beach with Jesus, and ultimately leads him back to the feet of Jesus. So when I want you to think about these two disciples. They both have the worst night of their life. They both violate their relationship with Jesus Christ in the worst ways imaginable. They both have an immediate reaction to that, to be ashamed of what they have done. So what is the difference between what happens with Judas, who goes on to isolate and take his own life, and what happens to Peter? What is the difference? Judas goes by himself. Peter enters the community. And I think that in itself is what makes all the difference between these two men. The Soul Reset, this series that we have been on for the last several weeks, it's not about avoiding the bad days of our lives. It's about learning to be with Jesus even when the bad days show up. And that is something, I will tell you, that is something that takes hard work, it takes practice, it takes devotion, and it takes confidence in the work of God. In this series, we have seen brokenness in our biblical narrative. But I hope you also take account of the places in your own life where you are hurting, where you are struggling, where you are feeling less than you know that you should be. I'll tell you, there is a great temptation. I don't know about anybody else, but there is a great temptation for me, and I suspect for a lot of others too, to go through our struggles alone and by ourselves, to never admit to others how truly hurt we might be in our lives. But I want to impress on you this morning the power and love that come from true, open-hearted worship. The love that comes when we get ourselves close to God, confessing that we're messed up people, body, mind, and soul, and that God and God alone is able to bring us healing and wholeness.